Presidents of Sri Lanka and China agreed to continue projects under Belt and Road Initiative, including the Port City project. New parliament was scheduled to convene today as per the president's proclamation. What happens next? Prasanna Ranatunga says the old parliament will not be reconvened due to the risk of motions being brought against the president and the prime minister. Five-member bench appointed to consider the petitions challenging the date of the elections. Mangala Samaravira questioned by the CID. Central Environmental Authority to re-export garbage containers back to the UK, pursuant to a court order. Very good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. Taking a look at those stories in detail, Chinese President Xi Jinping has suggested that China and Sri Lanka should gradually resume practical cooperation in various fields, advance major cooperation projects such as the Colombo Port City project that falls under the Belt and Road Initiative.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Chinese President Xi Jinping participated in a telephone conversation late last night. President Xi Jinping has noted the practical cooperation in various fields and advance major cooperation projects between the two countries should be carried out while ensuring COVID-19 prevention and control. He noted that under President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's leadership, Sri Lanka has effectively contained the spread of the virus, adding that China stands ready to continue to provide firm support and as much assistance as its capacity allows for the South Asian country in line with its needs. The Chinese president also thanked the Sri Lankan government and the people for taking care of Chinese citizens in their country during the pandemic and said the Chinese side will continue to ensure the safety and health of Sri Lankan citizens on its soil. Responding to the Chinese president, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa said that he welcomes more investment from Chinese enterprises, affirming that Sri Lanka is willing to work with China to enhance exchanges and cooperation in fields such as economy, trade, tourism and infrastructure, and smoothly push forward major belt and road cooperation projects such as Colombo Port City.
Do you remember why the 14th of May was significant, especially in a political context? According to the Gazette issued by the President dissolving Parliament, today was the day that the new Parliament was due to convene. Now, this Gazette notification continues to be valid as it wasn't rescinded. Now, against such a backdrop, where the general election has been postponed, what will happen next?
According to the Gazette that was issued on the 3rd of March, the Parliament was dissolved at midnight on the same day, and 25th of April was named as the date to hold the general election, and 14th of May was named as the date the Parliament will convene.
The Parliament was supposed to convene today according to the Gazette issued by the President. However, that did not happen. That Gazette notification has not been rescinded either. If the Parliament is not convened today, a new Gazette notification should be issued citing that Parliament will be convened on a date within the coming 3 months. A Gazette notification in that nature has not been issued as well. This shows that this government is disregarding the Constitution. The National Elections Commission has informed that the elections will be held on the 20th of June. At least according to that, a date to convene Parliament should be set, but this government has failed to set a date. This depicts only one thing. The present government works without a plan. We urge the government to act constitutionally and lead the country in the right direction.
The Gazette issued by the President to dissolve Parliament ends on the 14th of May, that is today, but the Parliament did not convene. A date for the election has not been named. Against such a backdrop, does the President have the legal right to use state funds?
Why would you have to use state funds? The government is using public funds. Therefore, under any circumstance, a dissolved Parliament cannot be reconvened. The Constitution cannot be violated. Only the President can convene the Parliament. It can be convened during an emergency. The President does not like to govern this country under emergency law.
There's a prediction that this election will cost at least 100 billion rupees. The question begs, at a time where the economy of the country is in dire straits, at a time where state employees are requested to donate a part of their salary, do we have the ability to spend this much money? The best thing the president can do is seek the advice from court and come to a decision. We have seen in the past how decisions given by the courts were implemented at chaotic times. I believe that this will be a fair decision that everyone will approve.
A 5-judge bench led by Chief Justice Jayanta Jayasuriya was appointed to consider whether or not the fundamental rights petitions and intermediary petitions filed challenging the decision to hold the parliamentary election on the 20th of June would be taken up for examination. The 5-judge bench comprises of Chief Justice Jayanta Jayasuriya and Justices Bonekalu Vihara, Sisira Diabru, Priyanta Jayawardena and Vijit Malalgoda. The petitions would be taken up for consideration on the 18th of June. The Al Jazeera News Service has featured Sri Lanka's impending general election on a recent news bulletin. Let's now take a look at that segment.
Preparations for a poll that was meant to be held quickly. But the coronavirus pandemic in Sri Lanka forced the snap parliamentary election to be delayed. When it became apparent, people couldn't go to the ballot box.
We don't want to conduct any election over the patients, over the dead bodies of the general public, over the government officials, over the political activities. We have to think about their lives. And other way, we have to think about the democracy.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa dissolved parliament in March and called the poll 6 months early in a bid to win control of the legislature. But with a nationwide curfew ordered to combat coronavirus, the Election Commission delayed it. That triggered fears of a potential constitutional crisis, as the election was meant to be held within 3 months. The new date of June the 20th falls outside that. But Rajapaksa says there'll be no need to recall the old parliament.
Law does not expect to do the impossible. Whatever happens, I have no need to recall the old parliament. I can only convene the new parliament if new legislators are appointed by an election.
The opposition says the election must be held soon.
We are very mindful of the necessity to have elections, the importance of elections, and the protection and promotion of democratic institutions. Having said that, we need to have a propitious environment, an appropriate context where we can have a free and fair election.
Critics argue large campaign rallies, canvassing for votes, and voting at ballot boxes will risk people's health. Several individuals and groups have petitioned the Supreme Court to delay the election even further. But with restrictions easing and an election approaching, the court doesn't have much time to decide. Mina Fernandez, Al Jazeera, Colombo.
What will happen to the general election? Will it be held or will it be postponed? Various opinions regarding this have been dominating political discussions today as well.
There is no need to initiate legal action against conducting the general election. If so, they could have refrained from handing in nominations. There is no difference between conducting the general election and the spread of the virus. The virus can spread in many ways. The country has reopened partially already. An election will not change anything. One can contract it even when traveling on a bus or even while working. There are many instances where the virus can be contracted. If it continues to spread even if the election is not conducted, discussions should be held and a decision should be reached.
Vimal Veeravansa's statement proves how greedy they are to hold an election. What is he saying? He says if the ballot papers are heated to a temperature higher than 52 degrees Celsius before being counted, the risk of officials contracting the virus will be eradicated. There is agreed to obtain a 2/3 majority. They would have to heat the people up to a temperature higher than 52 degrees Celsius when they come to vote.
රත් කල්ල ඡන්දෙ ගන්න කියලාත් කියන්න බැරි කමක් නැහැ.
Usually, the Election Commission is empowered to hold elections. It is the responsibility of the National Elections Commission to hold elections expeditiously. The affairs of the country are returning to normalcy. All the Election Commissioner has to do is to give the go-ahead to hold the election. The opposition cannot make decisions regarding the country. Countries such as South Korea held elections dealing with a worse situation. The Prime Minister of New Zealand has also mentioned that the election will be held as planned. An election is an indicator of a democracy. If there is a need to reconvene the old rejected parliament, the opposition holds a majority in that parliament.
According to the Constitution, the President has the power to reconvene Parliament under Article 70, Sub-Article 7 during an emergency situation. However, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa claims there is no emergency situation in the country. The schools, preschools, Dhamma schools and religious places of worship have also been closed down. The livelihoods of the people have been hindered. Against such a backdrop, if it cannot be considered an emergency situation, what would it take for an emergency situation to be declared?
The opposition united during the last presidential election and contested it. What is the challenge we have now? Is there a challenge when the opposition is divided? Many people, especially from the grassroots, have joined the SLPP. This is not a challenge for us.
The government is attempting to toy with the future of our children. They will attempt to reopen schools in a bid to prove that they have contained the pandemic. This will be done to prove that they are willing to do anything to further their political needs. I personally have my doubts regarding the regulations where a body has to be cremated within 24 hours. I worry if the government is attempting to depict that we are among the countries with the lowest number of deaths in order to gain mileage for the election.
There is no reason to postpone the election. The chairman and the other commissioners of the National Election Commission should make a proper decision soon because it is an annoyance to the people. Will the election be held or not? One says there is and another says there isn't. I think some have been given preferential numbers because they are displaying them. We have not received anything. As lawful citizens, we do not want secret numbers. This country should have one law. Various people cannot have their own opinion of the law. We wonder if the NEC has given them numbers in secret. I want to know if they had been given numbers. If it is true, it is a disappointing situation. If they are engaging in illegal acts even before the election process commences, how are we to expect a fair election?
It is not suitable to convene Parliament at present. The country has a president. The police and the tri-forces are operating efficiently. The populace is not starving. They say it is a military control. It is a successful program. I feel the people would prefer a military style of control even for another 3 to 4 years, even if Parliament does not function. If Parliament functions, funds will be wasted again.
What is the truth behind the fertilizer problem? Although residents of cities and its suburbs are not directly affected by this issue, if left unaddressed, could cause a shortage of essential food items, which will undoubtedly impact all of us. With 38% of our population directly or indirectly engaged in agriculture, the fertilizer issue in the country today is where farmers are requesting for adequate fertilizer for their farmlands. What is the response of the government? The government says adequate fertilizer has been distributed. This was a statement made by Minister Bamdula Gunawardena on the 30th of April. This was the director of the Fertilizer Secretariat speaking today.
Last season, 329,000 hectares of paddy was cultivated. This year, the plan was to cultivate 523,000 hectares of paddy. Also, there are lands that are added daily. By today, 17,000 hectares of land has been cultivated additionally. Our farmers don't use the amount of fertilizer recommended by the Ministry of Agriculture. They especially use a lot of urea.
Minister Ramesh Patirana also spoke about this issue today.
With the rejuvenation of the agricultural industry in the country, more land has been allocated for farming during the Yala season. So we know that there is a shortage of fertilizer in some parts of the country. We are immediately ordering fertilizer to be brought into the country. Fertilizer is being brought through the Lanka Fertilizer Company and Commercial Fertilizers Limited, which are state-owned institutions. We are distributing these stocks.
නිලධාරී AC කාමරවල ඉඳලා කියන්නේ එක කතාවක්. පොහොර ගබඩවල තියෙනවලු. ඒත් බලන්න කොයි කඩේද තියෙන්නේ. අපි නිකන් නේ පොහොර ඉල්ලන්නේ. අපිට පොහොර ඕන අපි සල්ලි දීලා ගන්න. කඩේකට පොහොර දාලා නැහැ. කොයි ජන සේවාවලට පොහොර දාලත් නැහැ. තියෙනවා දන්න ඒ කට්ටිය නැහැ කියනවා.
බලධාරීන්ට කිව්වා නමුත් පොහොර නැහැ කියන ප්‍රශ්නේ තමයි කියන්නේ. කඩවලුත් වහලා මේ ඒවා කොහොමද දන්නේ? ඉතින් කඩවල වලට ගියාම කියන්නේ යාලා පොහොර නැහැ කියලා.
යූරියා මඩ කිසිම පොහොරක් නැහැ අපිට. මේ දැන් ගොඩ කොයිතරම් කරන්නවත් පොහොරක් නැහැ අපිට.
ඉදිරිය වාසහායත් අපි ජීවත් වෙන්නේ කොහොමද? ඒකට අවශ්‍ය කරන කඩු ආණ්ඩුවෙන් හරි කවුරුහරි අපි මේකට මැදිහත් වෙලා අපි මේකට පොහොරට ලබා දෙන්න.
It was the government who instructed the general public to grow their own crops. They also urged the public to consume homegrown food items. Against such a backdrop, is it really a surprise that the requirement for fertilizer in the country has increased?
The fact that a higher amount of land is being cultivated was not realized. So now there is a shortage of fertilizer in the country.
Officials are tasked with setting up the mechanism for farmers to operate in. The farmers bear the responsibility of supplying food to the country, and they are ready to fulfill their duty. But where is the fertilizer? Farmers in Anuradhapura, Polonnarua, Kurunegala, and across the country are affected by this shortage.
We only get 10 kilograms of fertilizer for 10 acres of land. That is not enough. This has affected all farmers in Polonnarua. Our harvest has reduced. We request the government to release the fertilizer to markets so that farmers can purchase them.
The request for fertilizer from the government across the country is simple. If you can't supply us with fertilizer, set up a mechanism for us to purchase them from the market.
Proposed a certain sum of money to be given to farmers to eat natural fertilizer and use them. People can also purchase fertilizer using this money. When the government intervenes and provide fertilizer at a concessionary rate, stocks of fertilizer. Ministers are involved in incidents where stocks of fertilizer disappears. This is the fertilizer mafia. When the distribution of fertilizer is delayed for a couple of weeks, ministers receive millions of rupees in commissions. That is how these stocks of fertilizer are hidden.
To those involved in this mafia, farmers who attempt to purchase fertilizer are like lambs being led to the slaughter.
I don't think Chamal Rajapaksa can escape the grasp of these scammers. If Chamal Rajapaksa does not understand how these scammers operate, we are ready to explain the facts to him.
In the end, it is always the farmers who suffer the brunt of the blow.
The political sphere continues to be dominated by discussions like when the general election will be held next. However, what you saw was a report on issues that are faced by everyday Sri Lankans, farmers in Sri Lanka, the backbone of the Sri Lankan economy. Now, on to the question of when the general election will be held. Of course, this will be decided by the Elections Commission. Also, factors that will affect this decision include the fundamental rights petitions that have been filed at the Supreme Court challenging the date of this election. Now, these fundamental rights petitions will be considered by a 5-judge bench headed by Chief Justice Jayanta Jayasuriya. These petitions will be considered on the 18th of May. Continuing in your local news, the Criminal Investigations Department recorded a statement from former Minister Mangala Samaravira. The CID summoned Mangala Samaravira to be present at the CID headquarters this afternoon in order to record the statement. This is in relation to the investigations taking place for providing internally displaced people an opportunity to cast their ballot at the recent presidential election by transporting them in buses from Puttlam to Mana.
Former Minister Dr. Rajitha Senaratne today filed a petition with the Court of Appeal requesting to reverse the order given by the Colombo High Court, quashing the bail order given by the Colombo Chief Magistrates Court on the 30th of December. The petition requests for the High Court order to be quashed as the High Court judge had misinterpreted the Bail Act. The revision application and documents were handed over to the Colombo High Court this afternoon to be directed to the Court of Appeal, and the appeal was included in the list of matters to be called up at the Court of Appeal as of this evening. The forensic audit on the bond scam has come out. On the political stage, Gotabaya Rajapaksa said that he will punish those responsible within 2 weeks. Now all of those cases have been set aside and they are pursuing a former minister over a statement he made about crocodiles. I see this as an act of exacting political vengeance. When we were in jail, we did not think that someone from that party would do something like this to Rajitha Senaratne. This is similar to what they did to Shani Abesekara. They continued to attack him. The night I was arrested, it was Shani Abesekara who took my wife to the CID and questioned her from 10 in the night to 7 in the morning. When those things were done, Shani Abesekara was good. If you don't support them politically, they will take revenge.
Concessions given to the general public amid the COVID-19 outbreak were announced at the Cabinet media briefing today.
All communities affected by COVID-19 in the month of April were given a monthly allowance of 5,000 rupees. This allowance was distributed without discriminating people based on their political parties, race, religion, caste or gender. The cabinet paper requesting for funds from the Treasury to provide this allowance during the month of May was presented by Attorney at Law Pavitra Vanyarachi. She requested for 3.14 billion rupees for the payment of the elders' allowance to 629,214 elders. There are 489 elders in Sri Lanka who are above the age of 100. 2.4 million was distributed among them. 619 million rupees was distributed among 123,641 disabled people in the country. 221 million rupees was distributed among 44,291 kidney patients. In total, 3.9 billion rupees have been distributed among 797,635 people. 8.991 trillion has been allocated for 1,798,293 Samurdhi beneficiaries, including those who are on the waiting list. The Centre for Monitoring Election Violence alleges that some of the officers and managers of community banks have been illegally given access to electoral lists for the distribution of the 5,000 rupee allowance to some of the beneficiaries. In a letter to the chairman and the members of the National Elections Commission, CMEV said the Director General of Samurdhi has made a written request on the district secretaries to hand over electoral lists to Samurdhi community banks. The Centre for Monitoring Election Violence notes that copies of certain electoral lists have been issued and some of those copies carries the logo of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna in the small print. The Centre for Monitoring Election Violence questions the Elections Commission how these electoral lists were issued while the Commission officially prohibited to do so. The organisation stresses that this is a serious violation of election laws.
Meanwhile, journalists questioned co-cabinet spokesmen as to how money was donated to provide concessions. All relief and payments have been made with the government's money. I state with utmost responsibility that not a single dollar was donated by a foreign institution or a country. The opposition made a very distinctive allegation that we have imported 3,000 vehicles to Sri Lanka. We say that not a single vehicle was imported to the country. With the present situation, I believe that the President will not make a move of that nature in the 5 years to come. As of now, we have received more than 4.5 billion rupees from the European Union. We have received funds to purchase medical equipment, funds for the tourism sector, funds for the agriculture sector, 410 million for the health sector, 710 million for the tourism sector, 3.37 billion for the agriculture sector have been given to us. We urge the government to distribute these funds of 4.5 million to the people. The tourism industry and the agriculture sector is in dire straits. There is a shortage in medical equipment in the country. As the Samagi Jana Balawege, we are carrying out a small program to purchase medical equipment to hospitals across the island.
රෝහල් පද්ධතියට උපකරණ ලබා දීමේ පුංචි වැඩසටහනක් අපිට පුළුවන් ආකාරයෙන් අපි කරගෙන යනවා.
Cabinet approval has been granted to publish the Gazette notification prohibiting the importation of non-essential goods and vehicles. The respective gazette has been tabled by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. However, there are no restrictions on importing essential goods into the country. In the event of importing non-essential items, importers are required to make arrangements with their suppliers to obtain a credit period of 180 days. It ended firmer today for the second straight session.
The benchmark all-share price index ended 0.60% firmer at 4,393.54 points, while most liquid share index, the S&P SL20 index, fell 1.28% to 1,707.02 points. The turnover was at 3.68 billion rupees. Foreign investors sold a net 2.86 billion rupees worth of shares on Thursday. The Bourse is down by 28.27% so far this year due to heavy selling pressure triggered by the coronavirus pandemic, followed by currency depreciation and economic worries.
In the wake of the possible adverse impact on liquidity and other key performance, the central bank has decided to strengthen the liquidity position of banks. The decision was taken by the Monetary Board of the central bank.
With a view to strengthen the liquidity positions of banks under these exceptional circumstances, the central bank has decided to restrict certain discretionary payments of licensed banks. These include declaring cash dividends or repatriation of profits, engaging in share buybacks, increasing management allowances, and payments to the board of directors for a limited period until the 31st of December 2020. The Monetary Board has also decided to waive the annual assessment of domestic systematically important banks for the year 2020 and to maintain the already designated DSIBs as published in December 2019 for this year as well. Through these extraordinary measures, the CBSL expects the banks to provide uninterrupted credit flows in a prudent manner to revive economic activities where in turn all sectors, including the financial sector of the economy, will benefit.
An island-wide curfew will be imposed on Sunday, the 17th of May. The Presidential Media Division said that the curfew imposed in Colombo and Gampaha will continue to be in effect until further notice. The curfew that is to be imposed in the district except Colombo and Gampaha districts will be relaxed on the 18th of May at 5 a.m. and will be reimposed and continued until the 23rd of May from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. In more local news, the family of attorney-at-law Hijaz Hizbullah, issuing a statement, said that they are disturbed by a vile and vicious media campaign against him to prejudice public opinion. Attorney-at-law Hijaz Hizbullah was arrested recently in connection to the investigations carried out into the April 21st attacks.
The family of attorney-at-law Hijaz Hizbullah says they believe the media campaign was unleashed to punish Hijaz for the recent shocking disclosures made against the CID in certain fundamental rights cases in the Supreme Court. According to the statement, the family members say they are shocked about the media reports which claim to reveal the contents of confidential statements made by 2 child witnesses to a magistrate. They say they have full confidence in the legal system in this country. They add that they do not wish to see a one-sided trial by media, one in which false and diabolical stories about Hijaz are spun and planted by his captors, who for 1 month have prevented Hijaz from even communicating with his lawyers. The letter, written by the wife, brother and sister of Hijaz Hizbullah, was signed on behalf of the family by Mr. Hefraz Hizbullah.
The Presidential Commission appointed to probe the April 21st attacks resumed examination of evidence today. Now, Senior DIG Vasantha Vikramasinghe testified before the Commission today. He was operating as the acting DIG for the Western Province North Range when the attack occurred. Moving on in local news, the Central Environmental Authority has taken steps to re-export the garbage containers that were imported from the United Kingdom last year.
The garbage containers were stored at the premises of the Sri Lanka Ports Authority and at the premises of a private institution located in the Katunaika Export Processing Zone. The Central Environmental Authority said it will take steps to re-export the consignment back to the United Kingdom in pursuant to a Court of Appeals decision in a case filed by a non-governmental organisation. The authority has also taken necessary steps to deal with the local and foreign institutions dealing with this environmental issue on a diplomatic level to reach an agreement and take legal action.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has donated 292,500 rupees to the COVID-19 Health and Social Security Fund. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa donated the money to the fund, to the COVID-19 Health and Social Security Fund, according to the President's media division. This is the President's salary for 3 months. The check had been handed over to the President's Secretary, Dr. P.B. Jayasundara, this afternoon. The primary choir of St. Peter's College, Bambalapitiya, took time to perform the Nagitimu Sri Lanka song. Here is their rendition of this song. That's a wrap of Primetime News on TV1. We now directly cross over to Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And a very good evening to you. This is Newsline Live, and we're broadcasting from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. In fact, we're broadcasting from the newsroom in that same building. And my guest this evening is very important.